What's going on, guys? This is G Logan TN, and today I'm going to bring you my personal top 10 games of 2013. This was a year that featured some very big AAA titles, as well as a couple of cult classics, but without further ado, let's jump right in. Up first, we got number 10, Dead Space 3. Now this is, I'm not going to lie and say I'm not a fan of the series, and that probably gets it a bump to put it on the list. But you got a classic horror RPG just like the rest of the games in this series. A couple of interesting different mechanics in terms of being able to craft and things like that. I personally enjoyed the co-op nature of this game as well. And in terms of the trophies in this game, it's a pretty straightforward list. It's not nearly as ridiculously difficult as number 2 was with the hardcore playthrough. But just overall an enjoyable experience. And I think the co-op nature just added a little something extra to it. Overall, very enjoyable game, and I think Metacritic actually had this game at a 78, which I thought was a little disrespectful. But yeah, so overall, pretty enjoyable game. I would definitely recommend it if you have not ever played this series before. Up next, at number 9, we got Lego Marvel Superheroes. I'm definitely a Lego fanboy. I enjoy most of the games as long as they don't have something, kind of ridiculous in terms of even glitches, things of that nature. But this one definitely stood out to me because I feel like it's got the perfect of all the worlds combined up to this point. It had the hub and the aircraft, and you could kind of get around from there. Enough flying characters that allowed you to kind of get where you needed to go without too much running around. But overall, I mean, it's a standard Lego game, and I enjoy all of the universes that were featured in this, with the Avengers and things of that nature. Obviously, pretty straightforward platinum, like most of the other Lego games. Overall, this is just definitely one of those games to just sit back and enjoy time playing the game. So if you're a big fan of the Lego games and haven't checked this one out, I would encourage you to do so. Pretty exciting game. Fun to just kind of turn the brain off and get after it. And that's going to be a Metacritic score of 83. Up next at number 8, we've got Call of Duty Ghosts, which is sort of a polarizing experience in the Call of Duty franchise, most notably due to the exclusion of zombies and the inclusion of the aliens, which, I'll be honest, at first this really kind of put me off, and it took me about 2 years to come back to this and kind of get into the co-op nature of that, and I ended up eventually enjoying it once I kind of set it aside that yes, this is not zombies. Overall, fun campaign, pretty much what you would expect from any other campaign. There's nothing that really sets it apart. But yeah, just a number of the launch titles with the PS4 that I thought were really kind of showed off the nature, the new power that we have with the new system. Multiplayer, pretty much, as the rest of the series, but overall, I enjoy the Call of Duty series, so I definitely wanted to get this included on the list, but a 78 Metacritic score. So again, a couple of 70s out of the gate for the PS4. And up next, at number 7, we have Metro Last Light. And this is a game, again, another game that I kind of jumped into later on in the series. But yeah, I was really didn't know much about this series, so I ended up jumping in with Last Light and enjoyed it so much that I eventually ended up going back and playing the original. But yeah, it's just a first-person shooter, as you see, a pretty good theme throughout the top 10 so far, but just a different nature, not your standard Call of Duty Battlefield, things of that nature, but just really interesting story, not a super long game, which is always fun. You don't want to get too bogged down, but definitely enough to keep you there and keep you going. Metacritic score of 80 on this one. It's actually better than both the previous RPG style games. Yeah, definitely a hidden gem, I'd say, or at least I didn't know about it. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed this game. No multiplayer nonsense, none of that. Just a good single player shooter with a good story, which is actually kind of hard to find these days. Next on the list at number 6, we have Battlefield 4, and I promise this is the last first-person shooter on this list. But again, that's just a kind of a personal theme of mine. I kind of enjoy the first-person shooters, even though I'm terrible at the multiplayer. I always enjoy just getting in there, just the whole nature of the concept where you can kind of just jump in and play for a little bit. Whereas, in longer RPGs, you have a tendency to kind of I don't want to get started unless I can really invest a couple of hours to this. Yeah, just a fun multiplayer to drop in and out of. Campaign, pretty short. I want to say it was 6, 7, 8 hours or something like that. A really short campaign. But the multiplayer is just so ridiculously over the top in terms of the scale, the destructible environments, all of the things along those lines that really brought out the power of the PS4. I feel like this may be one of the best games that shows the power of the new system. But I think Metacritic score had it at 85, which is the highest on this list so far, and I actually agree with that. I feel like that's right about where this game comes in at, and definitely check this out if you haven't had a chance to yet. And for a brief pause from the top 10, we're going to throw an honorable mention in, and that's Tomb Raider, a reboot of a series that was desperately in need of just that. Had really been dragged through the mud over the past 5-10 years before this, and this game really brought it back in the spotlight that it deserved to be in. A really good looking game, good overall playing game. The campaign was fantastic. If it wasn't for the multiplayer, it definitely would have been in the top 10, maybe even the top 7 or top 8 games on this list. But the multiplayer was just that bad. I think the Metacritic had it at a 85, which is actually one of the best games on this list, ironically enough. But again, the multiplayer for me was just bad enough to keep it off this list. But definitely a game, if you haven't jumped in, check this one out. It's definitely worth playing. The single player is awesome. Trophies are pretty straightforward. Overall, I think if you're into the RPG style game, you'll really enjoy this, and it's definitely worth checking out, especially with the newer one on the horizon. Next up, we're going to jump back into the top 10 and go with the top 5. Coming in first is Resogun, which is one of the original, rather the first of the PS4 free exclusives that we got. And this game was nothing like anything else I had ever played prior. And I really don't feel like there's been a good replication of this game since. But a good party game, a good game just to lose some time. As I previously mentioned with one of the other titles, this is a really good game to just kill some time. It's a good, relaxing game to just kind of jump in and out of and play as you will. It really ramps up the difficulty, believe it or not. It starts out, it seems like, oh, this is pretty fun. And you very quickly get sucked into the difficulty and wanting to top each other's scores, because there's leaderboards. Obviously all your friends are listed on there, and it just brings a different element to the PS4 that I didn't ever experience with the PS3 previously. And the Metacritic reflects as such with an 84, a very respectable game, and definitely one worth checking out if you weren't able to pick it up when it was free. And next up at number 4, we've got Killzone Shadowfall, and this is definitely going to be my dark horse pick for this top 10. Based on the Metacritic score, it doesn't necessarily deserve to be here. But it's just a game that I enjoyed so much, and I'm not really sure why. This was similar to some of the previous titles like Metro Last Light. This was a game that I jumped into at this point and hadn't played some of the previous titles, but it was a launch title, and I was really trying to expand my horizons with the new console cycle. Metacritic has it at a 73, which I don't think is fair. I actually enjoyed this just as much as any of the rest of the games. At first, obviously, the multiplayer was not what you would see on the Battlefields and the Call of Duties of the world. There wasn't the same fan base, so you might have trouble finding matches at odd hours. But other than that, they've eventually thrown in bots, so you can work on some of the trophies to make those a lot easier. But overall, I thought the campaign was really good mechanics. I thought the game looked really good. Overall, really great and underrated game in my opinion. Moving on, we're now to the top 3, and we have got some heavy hitters on the horizon. First up, we've got Bioshock Infinite, which is the final installment in what has been a tremendous series. Cannot say it enough. If you haven't played the Bioshock games, stop what you're doing right now and jump in. This culminated this series in the absolute most perfect way. The story in these games is incredible for an RPG like this. Definitely not one that you just kind of sit through and go through the motions. It's got an incredibly immersive story, and if you've played all 3 of them, this really ties the entire series together like I've really never experienced with another game like this. Metacritic had it at an incredible 94. So again, that speaks volumes in my opinion. Overall, the trophies were pretty straightforward and an enjoyable game from that perspective. But yeah, this just took us out of Rapture into the skies, and showed us an entirely new set of enemies and bosses to face. Cannot say it enough. Awesome game. And then at number 2, we've got Assassin's Creed Black Flag. I'm an Assassin's Creed fanboy. I'll admit that on the front end, but Black Flag is definitely my favorite installment of this series before and since. Incredible game with an entirely new mechanic in terms of the open water and the open seas and the ship battles and all of those things that this brought to this game. This installment nailed all of them, and I really enjoyed going out and exploring in a whole different regards. I didn't like chasing around the musical notes, but that's another story for another day. The Metacritic on this game was an 83, which is lower than a couple of previous games on this list, but again, I am by nature biased towards Assassin's Creed, so I felt like this deserved to be at the top 2 games. Overall, really good game, a really standard experience, what you would expect from Assassin's Creed. But if you're a fan of RPGs and the open world and exploring and collecting, you're gonna enjoy this game. So please check it out. And the final entry on this series is going to come as no surprise. We've got at number 1, The Last of Us. Regarded as one of the greatest games of all time, and rightfully so. This game has an incredible Metacritic score of 95, and I second that completely. Just an incredibly immersive story and experience. The game looks visually amazing, plays just as good, and people have actually studied this game to try to figure out why exactly this game is so good. And I'll be honest, I don't know. I don't get it. It just is that good. So please check this out if you've been living under a rock and haven't played this game before. Joel and Ellie go out and explore the world and try to put life back together. And it's just an incredible story, an incredible game. There really are no words to explain this game until you've played it and you have that aha moment. That's why it was a no-brainer for me, putting it at the top 10 games of the year 2013. And ironically enough, it's a PS3 game that tops the list for me in the year that birthed the PS4. So there it is, guys. There's my top 10 games, top 11 games of the year 2013. Some really incredible games, like I mentioned before, some AAA titles, but also some games like Resogun that came out of nowhere. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. See if there's anything I missed. See if there's anything I got completely wrong. Like maybe Killzone Shadowfall doesn't deserve to be in there. But anyway, I look forward to making more videos like this in the future. So please feel free to like and share these videos if you like them, and subscribe if you want to see more content like this in the future. And I look forward to talking to you guys more. Thanks.